Hey there everyone, and welcome to The Disconnected. I am here in one of my local parks and I'm going to be starting a new series called The Connection. There's only so much I can do in my movie room at home to go in depth on certain topics, and I think this will be a good way to go over some semi-scripted topics that we can talk about and get in depth on certain things. Today's the first inaugural episode and we're going to be going over why I collect. So let's start the intro. You know, inevitably, whether it's in an online forum or groups of some sort, somebody will always end up asking, why do you collect? Why do you choose to collect physical media? And sometimes I have people that find out that I have a room full of vinyl and Blu-rays and stuff like that, and they end up asking something that includes the word like Spotify or Netflix. And I'll be the first to say, there's nothing wrong with those things. If they work for you, then great. But there's quite a few reasons that I personally choose to collect physical media, and I'm going to go into those now. So the first thing with streaming is I do understand the appeal of paying $15 a month for HBO Max and getting access to thousands and thousands of titles. That's great, but at the end of the day, streaming rights are a fickle beast and things change literally day to day sometimes. The first of the month comes and, you know, a couple hundred titles are gone. Maybe you wanted to watch them, maybe you didn't, but now you don't even have that option. So you may want to keep a subscription for Hulu Plus, HBO Max, Netflix, YouTube Red, Amazon Prime, and 15 other places, not to mention all the free sites like Tubi and Vudu and using YouTube if you don't have YouTube Red, and all of those either get pricey or you end up with a whole bunch of intrusive ads, and I'm really not about either of those things. So to maintain access to all those titles I might want, physical media is a good option. It's not inherently inexpensive necessarily. It's worth it because it's mine. While price is certainly important, access to these titles is really the most important thing for me. There are some of these titles like Blue Underground's library with The New York Ripper and House by the Cemetery, Zombie, Maniac Cop 2 and 3, all those things, they rarely, if ever, show up on streaming services of any sort. So to get access to those, I have to have them on physical or I'm not going to be able to see them, period. You just don't even have that option unless you're going to buy them through iTunes. And at that point, might as well spend a little bit more and get it on true 4K. And that brings me to the next point, is that streaming quality will always be lesser than disc quality, at least for the foreseeable future. We are talking many generations into the future. We might get something better, but right now, even Netflix's advertised 4K is not true 4K. There's compression problems, there's artifacting, there's pixelation that happens. None of these things can stack up to a true 4K. And if you actually look at some of these reviews and the actual test of what is going on with some of these that are direct to streaming and then come out on disc a few months later, the disc releases always end up getting higher scores. And that's true pretty much across the board. One of my main reasons to collect physical media is the community that comes from it. I've always enjoyed things like live shows, Q&As, going to concerts with friends, or simply just everybody sharing a couch and watching a movie together at home. Unfortunately, through COVID, that's been difficult, but thankfully we still have things like online forums and Facebook groups and hell, even this YouTube channel. I've been hoping to grow this into more of a community since the beginning, and I sincerely hope that continues. In the meantime, though, I do enjoy that aspect, and one of the biggest parts of a physical collection that I can do to create that sense of community is simply hanging out in the movie room, talking with friends, going over their memories of movies and what they mean for them. And that allows your friendships to grow and bond and find some things that you have in common that are probably something that affected most of us for most of our lives. I mean, I've got movies like Back to the Future that I've got memories that are 30 years old that I love to share with people and just relate to them. So that's a good reason to focus on physical collecting. I'm also one of the odd ones that still loans out movies to friends for some reason. Yes, I do love just sitting in front of a TV with a bunch of friends and watching the same movie like Raw Force from Vinegar Syndrome and just laughing like hell at it, but schedules don't line up all the time anymore. I've got 2 young kids, most of my friends don't have young kids, and things just get difficult. So in the meantime, I can loan them out a disc and then we can talk about it after and bond that way. And it's basically a similar process that we'll do in the meantime until we can get more time together. To me, the most obvious reason to collect physical media is primarily the extras that come on these discs from boutique labels. You know, Netflix doesn't show me making of documentaries for all these movies. They don't have gag reels most of the time. They don't have, you know, interviews with the creators, something that I can learn the context through some of these movies. They don't have books that I can read and hold like a lot of these Arrow releases. And that's missing for me. There are a lot of movies where if you buy them on iTunes, there are some extras that come in there, but it's just not the same. They don't have the breadth of knowledge that some of these do. Hell, some of these making of documentaries are longer than the movies themselves, and they're a blast to watch. But the biggest thing is commentaries. You know, a director and a star of a movie going through the entire movie together and relating their memories and what was happening during the time. You glean a lot of information from that, and it is a great way to spend an afternoon. I love doing that. And now a somewhat controversial reason to collect physical media is the idea of censorship. It has been more commonplace in the last couple of years for either the artists themselves or production companies to erase certain scenes or entire episodes from streaming services and reruns on TV. A strong example of that is Tina Fey from 30 Rock. She had 4 of the episodes pulled from the streaming services that it was on and from all of the TV rerun schedule. For, I believe all of them were for blackface. I am glad that Tina Fey chose to do it and not the production company themselves, but I'd rather watch it fully intact, and I'm glad I own 30 Rock on Blu-ray now. It's a big deal. Now, not to get too deep into it, because I'm sure I'll get into that discussion on a future episode of The Connection, but I am not for that censorship. I am totally fine with the company putting context before an episode or a movie, but to erase it, how are future generations going to learn from our mistakes if we completely pretend it never existed? So I've got this sign up in my room that houses my collection, and it refers to my room as a library/museum, and I stand by that. I am obviously not a film archive because I don't have any actual reels of film. That's why I love supporting some of these companies like AGFA and Vinegar Syndrome that do everything they can to literally save some of these movies, because some of them are on their way out without their restoration or archive purposes. AGFA and Vinegar Syndrome are 2 of the biggest names in storing movies, and it's a big deal for me. So while I don't necessarily think the physical media collector is doing a noble job or anything like that, I do think it's an important thing to support these companies that are collecting and archiving film for all of us, because it is a historical aspect, and it is something that we should try to treasure for as long as we can. And in the meantime, we have some of these companies like AGFA and Vinegar Syndrome, like I mentioned, that are putting all of their money into preserving these relics of history. And granted, not every movie can be a complete winner, like a West Side Story or Wizard of Oz or something that has huge historical impact. But even movies like, you know, Shaquille O'Neal's Kazam, it deserves a place. It deserves a piece of art and a piece of our history. And if I can do something to contribute to saving those films, I happily will. That aspect of collecting and every film being important will be coming up very soon as another episode of The Connection. When it comes to home entertainment, I honestly believe that we are in the complete golden age of home entertainment. Gone are the days of, you know, $100 first-run VHS tapes, Laserdiscs being extremely difficult to find and costing hundreds of dollars just so that you can watch, you know, Die Hard at home. Some of these movies like Zombie 5 Killing Birds is getting multiple collector's editions from multiple companies. 88 Films put it out in a hardbound box with this long book with it. Some of these movies are beyond obscure, and we can get them by comparing prices across multiple websites and get them at our house in, you know, 2 to 6 days. It's easier than ever to buy some of these movies, and just supporting these companies is going to make that even better. You've seen that through COVID, things have even gotten better for the home boutique release market. It has grown exponentially. You can see evidence of that in things like Vinegar Syndrome's print runs. Most of their limited editions were at somewhere between $1,000 to $3,000 for years. And then the last couple of years, yes, the company's gotten more popular, but with that, you can see that through COVID, some of their print runs are $8,000 now. Even their VSUs are $10,000 plus. That is a crazy number for the home market nowadays. They are killing it. I don't know if any of you ever participated in the market, but gone are the days of you know, buying bootlegs through a poorly spelled catalog that you send away your postage for return postage, and then hope that in 4 to 6 months you're actually going to get the titles that you ordered, just so you could finally see a copy of Lucio Fulci's The Beyond. It just doesn't have to be that way anymore. Nowadays, I mean, we are literally living the dream of those that came before us for home entertainment. Like I mentioned earlier, the biggest part of this for me is memories and nostalgia. And one of the things that makes that so important to me is, just like many of you probably, I was bullied mercilessly. Even at home, I was always an outcast. And one of the places that I could always count on is going to the video store. My hometown, my 2 video stores were VJ's Video and Silver Screen Video. And I could spend hours in there each month just browsing through titles, looking at the cover art, and falling in love with certain movies that would be a part of my life for the rest of the time. And most of those movies I own now in the highest quality possible. I love that I'm able to do that now and live through some of those great memories 30 years later. And there you have it, a summary of all the reasons why I collect physical media, basically in a nutshell. Just recently we passed 200 subscribers on the channel, so thank you for that. We've been growing fairly steadily these last few months, and I greatly appreciate the community we've started to build. Share with your friends that might not have subscribed before. Hit that bell for notifications so you can find out as soon as my stuff goes live. And likes go a long way. It's just a good reminder, there are a lot of people that watch these videos and never subscribe, so it's something that I should throw out there sometimes. On that note, speaking of subscribers, once we get to 250 subscribers of the channel, I'm probably going to start a weekly live news video, since that's primarily what the other social outlets for this channel has been. We'll talk about releases that have been announced, what's upcoming in the following week. Planning on doing that on Thursday nights, so if you want to see that sooner, let's give a subscribe and get more people invited to the channel. In the meantime, there's one more thing to tease, kind of a big deal. Next week, I'm going to be doing a live interview with the leader behind Gold Ninja Video. They are running an Indiegogo right now, and he's going to come on and we're going to discuss everything about the label, about him as a collector. If there's anything that you would like to know or ask, please ask in the comments below, or join us next week and I will try to ask all those questions live. And in the meantime, from one collector to all of you, have a good night.